And the answer is the same. You don't just say, yeah, Jesus is the one, and move on from there. It's easy to say that. But Jesus didn't say, just tell people I'm the one. Jesus' response to that question was, look at what I'm doing. And so our answer is look at what he's doing. Because Jesus is not gone. You know, we talk about the Holy Spirit. You might remember back on Easter, we talked about how Jesus said, it's good if I go away, because you'll receive the Holy Spirit. What Jesus was saying was that, sure, he came, he lived a human life, you could see him face to face. But now that he's been raised from the dead, God is in us. And so the question, are you the one, that's addressed to Jesus, it's addressed to us. Maybe, do you have the one with you? And the answer is the same. It's not based in what we can say about what we're doing. It's based in how the things that Jesus is doing through us. Now, I'll tell you, you look at that list of things Jesus did, raising the dead and healing the sick, and it's a little intimidating. I have to tell you, I have seen enough things that were beyond my capacity to explain that I believe that some of those things happen. I'm not convinced that somebody who walks around and can, heal 100 people a day every Sunday morning is on the right track. And maybe it's not for most of us, maybe. Our calling for most of us is not to make the lame walk. You may not be called to make the blind see. But there's one thing in that list which we all can do. And that's the last one. The last one that's the most important one. That's why it's last. To preach good news to the poor. Now, poor has a whole lot of meanings in the Bible. It means the people who have nothing. The people who are alone and feel abandoned. The people who are despairing. You could say the spiritually poor or the socially poor even. It means the people who just don't know what they have. There's a way in which the people, they always talk about the poor little rich girl. The people who seem to have everything, and yet they have that hole. That's kind of poverty. But it primarily does mean the same thing it means today. The people who just can't survive from day to day. And you've probably heard this, I've said it before, that in the time of the Bible, if you were poor, it meant you weren't sure you had food on the table the next day. So if you are in this room, and you are pretty sure that you're going to be able to eat tomorrow, you're not poor. But there are poor people in our community. There are poor people around us all the time. There are people in despair around us all the time. And the judge of whether we are preaching, whether we are really proclaiming that Jesus is the one, is the way that we are bringing good news to them. And this isn't something for just one person. This isn't something for some of us. It's not something for the outreach team. This is about being a Christian, to bring good news to the poor. I had this encounter last week with a new church, which it seems like it would be the last thing that we need in Connersville, is a new church. But this one got my attention. I got a little caught. It's the Crosspoint Biker Church. And that kind of got my attention. There are churches in a number of cities that will have signs. Sometimes you can't read the signs, but if you could read the signs, they would say Spanish church or Korean church or Chinese church. And those make some sense because it's kind of it's a church that's reaching out to people who are in a completely different culture than the churches that exist there. And so what often happens is churches will cooperate or work together to build a church that reaches out into this culture that's come into the area. That's kind of what Crosspoint Biker Church is. They're there to reach out to a culture that most of us really can't relate to very well. You know, I think the sign that the Biker Church, to give you an idea, I met their praise team. I was talking to their praise leaders. I assumed he was the pastor, because he was giving out, people were doing what he was kind of running the show. He said, I'm not the pastor. He's back 3 rows in the orange do-rag. And I really believe in reaching the unchurched and reaching, but the guys in the orange do-rags are not going to be coming to talk to me. So that's not I don't know, maybe some of you do talk to bikers, and if you do, that's good, but that's a cultural barrier I'm not going to reach. So I've been talking to the people from Crosspoint Biker Church. It turns out, kept hearing this, it was kind of one of those things, some people would call it a coincidence, we'll call it a God thing. In the last week, I've talked to 3 different people for different reasons who are connected to the church. And they all had different stories about people who came in to their church in bad situations. And they all said the same thing. They said this guy, one was a homeless teenager, one was this drug-addicted biker, one was just a person who was kind of a bad relationship. And they said, they came in and we loved them. That's kind of what they're about.